You can think about Lava as a permissionless Amazon for any Web3 service. We're lowering the barrier to entry for devs, one-stop shop for all of this infra in one place, which is Lava. If we want to scale the Web3, we need...
Welcome to the Bare Metal Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning back into the Bare Metal Podcast. I'm Ship the Code with RockawayX Labs, and today I've got here with me Yair Cleper of Lava Network. Welcome.
Thank you, Martin. It's super exciting to be here. Glad you invited
So tell us, how did you get into crypto? How did you come up with the idea for Lava Network?
Definitely. So, me and my co-founder, we are three times entrepreneurs, founders from originally from Israel. Super techy. My co-founder built and sold a cybersecurity startup. I founded a couple of startups in fintech, business intelligence, and even super smart technology. So we like tech and we like to scale products. So actually 2.5 years ago, my co-founder jumped into Web3 and did some MEV bots and dragged me into the rabbit hole, how we say that. And once we were, thinking about what is Web3, what are the core beliefs behind that, we see that, it unlocks a lot of innovation in general in the world. And one thing that was very interesting to us is like why there is no killer app, right? Why the usage is limited? Where are developers versus AI and stuff like that? And we realized that there are a few theses today. Like today there is the Ethereum roadmap, which is roll-up centric, and you have upcoming paradigms like Celestia and modular blockchain that time to scale the throughput in blockchain. You also have the Cosmos upchain, which we decided Lava to build as one. And what was really interesting for us is the modular blockchain. I remember reading the Lazy Ledger of Mustafa white paper years ago, and he was describing that as pluggable. So now, obviously, it's a massive force and narrative in leading the modular charge, let's say. So in general, we think that there are three different theses how Web3 is going to develop. There is the Ethereum, roll-ups, L2s, that's the Ethereum roadmap. We have the Cosmos, that's many upchains, especially last year coming up, such as Say, Smoothie, Stride, and there are the monolithic chains like Solana. So we believe that this boost will create the need and the development of hundreds and thousands of blockchains in the near future. And this means that there's going to be three different layers. There's the execution, the consensus, and the data availability. So if you think about what is the benefits of the modular approach, we think that innovation and customization at each layer. So you see Fluent is a blockchain that we've spoken that and building a new execution environment on ZK-Wasm. We see Eclipse. And what we felt is that there is a convergence of the three different layers of the blockchain. That will help boosting all this adoption of modular blockchain with scales and cost efficiency. So this is kind of the fourth layer that we see as the common denominator. And this is data access layer, right? Think about RPC, indexing. How do you read, write data? So if I can recap all of that, we believe that there are four layers of modular blockchain, right? There is the execution, the consensus, the data availability, and the data access layer. And it makes
what you're saying. So sort of, it feels to me previously, RPCs were more like an afterthought. Even today, it's like, these pesky RPCs, you actually need them to access. But your position is, this is actually a very important gateway in using which the blockchain talks to the outside world, right? So it's like a key layer between the users of the chain and the chain itself, which needs like specialized attention, which you guys are focusing on?
When you think about 2 years ago, when we first thought about Lava, we thought this layer, which back then we didn't thought about that as a layer, has many properties from speed, availability, decentralization, chain agnostic. We're going to the multi-chain. What about scalability, privacy? And that's why our vision in Lava was to give the developers one layer accessing to any blockchain. And we recently call it build whatever, wherever.
Interesting. So can you dig more into this? So what is Lava Network? So you mentioned it's an L1 blockchain using the Cosmos stack, right? So that's sort of like the nature of the code base. But what is it as a service? If I'm interfacing with Lava Network, why am I doing that? What can I use Lava Network for?
So you think Lava, it's a three-sided marketplace, right? That we coordinating that for the different actors. You have the node providers that providing service, starting from RPC and then APIs. They serving data modules that we call them specs. The second actor is consumers, dApps that need the data, read, write transaction, and immediately when they come into Lava, Lava is pairing them to all the node providers. Another actor of the marketplace is our contributors, or we call them champions. Champions are adding specs to Lava, so provider can serve any chain and any API. So overall, the protocol is ensuring the quality of service, right? So provider staking in order to participate in the network, they can be slashed or jailed for poor quality service. At the same time, they receive rewards for super high service. Consumer, they are scoring the providers by the parameters of the session, from latency, uptime, accuracy. And they're using one subscription to access all the different chains. This is in general how Lava works.
So this is interesting. You don't have like another third party to sort of like measure quality or like analyze, let's say, the responses. The customers who are the subscribers themselves, who are using the service to read or write data, they are actually after they do their transaction, they actually submit some sort of rating.
Obviously, yeah, exactly. This is obviously everything is happening under the hood automatically, but you can think about Lava as, and we like to take this, to give this analogy as the permissionless Amazon for any Web3 service, right? Because if you think about Amazon, so Amazon is actually a network of different merchants that can quickly add, support new product based on the demand, right? So Lava, it's a network of node providers that can dynamically and quickly add support for any APIs or any chain. This is, there are two novelties that Lava is bringing, which is far beyond the decentralization or permissionless, like the comparison to Amazon. One of them is that it's permissionless, so anyone can join, become a champion, build new modules, support new chains up and coming. And the second novelty is the peer-to-peer algorithm that you directly connected from the browser to a list of top node providers, and that constantly are being scored and accountable for the service they give to you.
One of the interesting things that I think are unresolved with RPCs in general, if I'm thinking about this like first application, right? I'm just reading off the chain, is RPC responses are not digitally signed, right? So from standard servers. So if I'm talking to an RPC, the RPC can totally lie to me, right? I'm asking for a balance, it can change the data on the way out, and unless I'm really sort of, I was really looking at, somehow proving the state that I'm getting, but down to the block hash. I could be lied to, right? And I don't know how many people actually do that. I think almost nobody does that. Like none of the libraries that talk with RPCs like somehow do this out of the box. So I'm wondering if LavaNet, attacks this problem somehow, because that seems like a high value proposition toward consumers.
I was dragging in with my story before, but obviously because I'm passionate about that. And you touch one of the problems that from the beginning, when we started to access the blockchain data 2 years ago, everyone told us this is how it works. And I said, what do you mean? If you trust a centralized provider, you have a single point of failure. If this provider is down, you don't going to see the account balances. You cannot make transactions. I'm not talking about a bit even how it's scalable. So this is one of the problems. The second one was the censorship. We've seen different providers that censoring, or countries that censoring certain users because they could. There is one provider. The third one is the privacy, collecting your data and selling that to third parties. And the fourth one is the data accuracy. So at the beginning, we got a lot of question about light clients, and maybe light clients solve this problem to some extent, but they're not.
But they push the onus to the client, right? I have to like verify that something is, that I'm getting the right response. I don't want to do that as a consumer.
Exactly. So that's what we thought. How do we come up with a modular layer that sends your request to the best available provider? And you know that this network of providers are permissionless. They're being scored, and the node provider picks what they are the best to serve with. They pick. They can be. So we have 300 providers today in Lava. They are professional node runners, from Chainstack to Blockdaemon, Bureau Labs, and amazing provider like that. But we also have community node runner that's specialized in archival node in specific chains. So this is how Lava disrupt this ecosystem of blockchain data.
Well, even generates a market, right? So it's notoriously hard to be rewarded for any RPC services you provide. We're in conversations with quite a few chains, and it's always like running an RPC node entails asking someone for an extra, foundation delegation or something like that. But I don't think the situation is very good. So I think it's great you guys are attacking this problem.
And what was the evolution in the last, especially last half a year? We started with the decentralized thesis about decentralized RPC, and you see that main providers, everyone talking today about decentralized RPC. So that's the common knowledge. But then what happens after you solving the RPC? So you're starting having the same problems on and on again. You need to do indexing, you subgraph, sequencing. So we thought how we leverage and we help developers on one hand to get kind of an app store that they can immediately install any kind of need. And on the other hand, how we becoming the distribution channel or all of these devs or node providers that providing these added value services. And this is exactly why Lava is modular.
I'm trying to digest all this. That's so you may even be able. So the node operators were able to pull like new software from these like contributors that provides an entirely like a new service. Like 10 of them can choose to go and run an indexer that's packaged by somebody else. Then they tell Lava Network they're ready to serve these types of data. They're ready to serve these types of queries, and they're on the marketplace.
Exactly. So, let's take a normal, flow in the system. So Adapts, for example, is working now on Axelar. They coming to the IP RPC. It's our first product. I can elaborate a bit later. And they receiving, it's a public endpoint. So they receiving service and pair directly to dozens of different providers that already subscribed on Lava, on the Axelar ecosystem. What happened behind the scenes is that those providers sign up when we started and onboarded the Axelar IPRPC, and it takes 5 minutes for them to list their existing infrastructure and start getting rewards out of that. So everything, we keep it super, super simple. When I mentioned before that if a DApp has one subscription, and let's say he wants to go to new rollups that are coming from Manta, and currently is on Polygon, in Lava, the same subscription that allow him to receive read-write data on Polygon will be the same one that give him access to Manta now. So, all of these examples are making us to believe that we're lowering the barrier to entry for devs and scaling Web3.
So how does this work for, if I'm a app developer, right, and I want to use Lava Net, how would this work? Like, do I have to sign up on the blockchain, create an account, fund it with some tokens that I can use for to pay for the services? And then how do I interact with the chain? Like, how do I learn in that? Like, do I talk to a gateway that you guys have? Hey, I want to get data about, I want to get old Polygon data, right? So it's old block height and Polygon chain. Then the Lava network somehow, the validators or who replies to me and tells me what I can use?
Yeah, so the simplest way is to go to the gateway. It's simple access to Lava, easy access, web UI for any online project management. And you're receiving a URL-based API that this will be the access to any supported chains and APIs. Behind the scenes, there we have a list. The Lava network has a list of providers that's taking Lava. And once you need to read and to provide to do any request from account balance, gas prices, push some transaction, we are starting something that we call Epic. It's a session that during this session you'll communicate directly with one of the providers that was chosen. After the session is finished, the user is signing automatically on the transaction, and the Lava protocol behind the scenes receive all the data regarding the transaction about performance, accuracy, availability, the freshness.
Right. So metadata, not the content, but the metadata about the transaction. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
the Lava protocol basically sending behind the scenes the user to speak directly with the provider as if he was contracting them solely.
Directly, right.
Directly. And this creates a unique way of scale the whole industry. Because right now the DApp, if he works with one, usually what we hear that they also have a load balancer, a backup, a disaster recovery, all of that. And they don't need it now because they have one-stop shop for all of this infra in one place, which is Lava.
I think this is another point that I think is not necessarily just has enough visibility. It's sometimes the RPC node is actually a load balancer, and that's and you don't know that, right? It's not clear. It's looking at you like the interface looks like a standard RPC node, but behind the scenes is a load balancer. And if it's unordered, that's a very bad news because you speak to the load balancer and it says, I remember 5,000 blocks. Then you ask again and it doesn't remember the blocks 2000 because it's now talking to a different RPC node in the background and that one has a different parameter setting, right? So you're getting these Alzheimer-like responses and you don't know why. You're debugging your application. Like we've had this. We scan a lot of RPCs in the Observatory product that we have. We scan the public RPCs that have domains, scan all of them, but we show scoring for the public ones that have actually domains. So it's easy to see on the website that many times the success rates are not super high. And some of this is even caused by the fact that some of those are undeclared load balancers, right? They behave like something else. So like putting order into this and having a spec that says anybody who wants to provide RPC service is guaranteed to remember 10,000 blocks. If they don't, it's a violation. Then I can rely on this as a DApp developer, right? So like getting some order here, and they have to support transaction indexing, for example, is another important feature with some people to reduce the costs when they're running RPC nodes is they don't provide the index for transactions. So you ask for a transaction hash and it says, I don't support transaction indexing. And that's also, it reduces the value for the developer. So if the spec contains like these capabilities that have to be supported, that's wonderful for like a consumer to then be able to rely on the service, right, and not to worry about it. Sorry, it's a bit of a rant, but we live this quite often.
You feel it. I feel your pain. That's why that's why we started. And one of the interesting modules you mentioned, I don't know if you did it intentionally or not. We call it conflict detection and conflict resolution. This is something we've been working since the last 2 years. with some of our researchers, and basically we trying to answer the question about the accuracy of the data. Sometimes it's not up to date block, as you mentioned, but other time there is DNS hijacking, so it's a manipulation to change the actual data. So what we're doing in Lava, and that's a very simple, straightforward explanation. We are querying every couple of blocks to other providers. So the provider who is being giving a service right now doesn't know is being kind of monitored and sampled. Those sampling is being sent across other providers, and they providing back the service. If the algorithm is finding out conflicts in the responses, they are being sent on chain for voting, and obviously minority providers are slashed or even jailed or even slashed. But this is kind of the module that we call them conflict detection and conflict resolution. But there is one goal here: to make sure the data is accurate, so the dApps can trust the data and they don't need to invest their resources on DevOps, on this kind of querying, on this kind of conflicts in responses. So I think it's a really, really important parameter and feature of Lava. I will send afterwards link to an amazing post that was written by our DevRel, and we call it passable of quality. So it's the quality of service module Lava has.
Right. So to summarize, Lava itself is taking care of sort of monitoring the operators and making sure, and just doing random checks that are masquerading, or they look like normal traffic to the operators. So to make sure they're incentivized to respond honestly to all these queries, because they know they'll be compared against other node operators randomly to understand whether the responses are matching.
This is how we ensure the high quality of service. Yeah.
What does it take to onboard an operator? Like if I wanted to provide a RPC node to, let's say, I don't know, Cosmos Hub, or I wanted to support Dimension, launched just now. I want to go on Lava Net and support Dimension. What do I have to do?
Amazing question. So we're working towards the mainnet, which going to be in the next few months, but in the low number of months. So really excited about that. We currently, testnet is up and running, serving billions of different transactions with our, first product that we call it IP RPC, incentivized public RPC. When we started, you were asking a good question. We've seen providers join to serve in 13 plus chains Lava is supporting, and they join a non-incentivized testnet, and we see a lot of traction there that really wanting to get service and provide service. This process is taking between 5 minutes to half an hour to onboard yourself as a node provider. And we had dozens of dApps.
So that's key. Let me quickly confirm. So it's permissionless for me to onboard onto LavaNet.
Definitely, yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So everyone can join and provide the service and receiving rewards across, down the service, the quality of service that they make. So that's the basic idea, how we are super, flexible and dynamic on one hand. But before I'm jumping into what happened if there is a new chain up and coming, we've been approached in the testnet last year from a different ecosystem. And they were telling us, look, we have this public RPC. Everyone knows public RPC is the first stop for every dev in a chain. But the ecosystem don't want to support the public RPC. So it's ending up being like the backyard of the ecosystem. They don't get insights towards that. They have lock-in contracts towards other vendors that maybe in 1 year it's not relevant anymore. So why they need to keep paying? And this is the product we launched in October. We take the burden of public RPC and we introduce incentivized public RPC. Basically, it's a pool that Lava is providing as a platform to any ecosystem, connecting the dApps and the users to providers. So provider can sign up spin up nodes or list their existing node and get monetization out of that. And during this month, we serve billions of requests. The ecosystem distributed like hundreds thousands of dollars in rewards, and it's very thriving. So currently we have 6 different ecosystems there: Avmos, Axelar, and we just announced with Near, and soon we happy to announce with Starknet, Koi, and Agoric, and so forth. So the ball is rolling.
So that's interesting. When you say hundreds of thousands of dollars in rewards, what tokens are those? Are you, if it's IP RPC, are those pools for each ecosystem incentivized by that ecosystem token? Like somebody has to, who puts up the incentives for the
ecosystem itself? They incentivize external node providers, community node runners to list their infrastructure and receive rewards for that. Think about like the Uber for nodes. You have a car, and you sometimes it's idle, so you can let anyone else drive it. But that's what we basically started with in Lava, the Uber for RPC nodes.
The Uber for RPC nodes. I like it. So that's actually pretty news, I think, for node operators. Like if they list their RPCs on Lava, they can start getting rewards. I know that's definitely a big pain point in discussions with ecosystems. And how to fund these RPCs. Yeah.
And if you call already node providers, we're calling also now for contributors. Contributors is the champions I mentioned before. So they can dynamically add quickly, any in demand for new APIs and chains. So they can join our community. Our community is around 20,000 members, and it's just growing. So those champions will take the responsibility for upcoming chains. So you mentioned Dimensions now is coming, and Manta just arrived. So they can take the specs of the RPC, define that, and make sure it's documented for the providers, and just publish this message in the Discord of Lava, and we see providers are joining constantly and serving. So this is how the marketplace works, and that's why
do the specs get committed on chain? So let me understand this process. If I'm a champion and I want to onboard Dimension, I have to, let's say I write up some sort of document that outlines what the service looks like, outline some SLAs and some required features that will be switched on, how to test this. I'm guessing here, I don't know. Yeah. But do I commit this on chain? Do I, as a champion, I send a transaction on chain with this spec, or is this an off-chain spec that then somehow gets verified? How does it work?
No. So basically today the process is more manual. In mainnet is going to be completely seamless. Today, the idea behind that is the champion can, request or make a proposal to the governance about the ingredients of the specs, the different parameters they have there, and the champion is going to continue support, maintain, and get rewards for adding this kind of new specs to Lava.
Understand. And what if there are multiple specs for one chain? How does this work out? If 3 people decide I want to support Dimension because it's fresh and new. How does
basically it's up to the governance to decide. That's why community is super vibrant, and there can be several specs for for different for the same chain. We think about for example, what happened with Tornado Cash on Ethereum, right? So it's up to the community to decide if they're going to add a OFAC spec or a non-OFAC spec, and anyone can decide if they need to they can support and join this OFAC or non-OFAC spec. So this is how flexible the open source of Lava.
What does the specification look like? Is it like some domain specific language, or is this like some code I have to write? Can you just give me a general, very general high
I
level
can send
summary?
afterwards. Yeah, so it's in every chain there are dozens and sometimes hundreds of different APIs. Those APIs obviously represent the beginning, the basic, protocol, RPC. But they can start from how you querying the account balance, the
Right.
gas fees and stuff like that. But then obviously we can take it to the much further vision of APIs. So if you want to know, for example, the indexing, right? Like what NFTs you have in a wallet in a specific ecosystem, or how you compare, different dexes or stuff like that. So all of this is feasible to come up
Outline in a
within.
specification.
Exactly.
So you mentioned governance. That was another interesting thing. So when I come up with a spec and I say, I'd like the community to adopt this spec, I would like it to become a Lava Network spec. Does this have to pass through governance? Like people vote on it, like token holders vote on it, and then it gets like included in like this canonical repository of specs, which is held by the blockchain. I'm talking about the after mainnet state. Is that the main idea?
So if I recap the first stage, we made the network as reliable and resilient as possible, and we did this with the decentralization, onboarding hundreds of providers across any chain. But the next step now is to make sure that every chain adopting this spec is being constantly monitored, maintained by the champion, and going towards the APIs, because developer won't use the service if it's not super reliable. And on the other hand, you have a small number of chains or basic RPC. So we want to be the go-to marketplace for any ecosystem in Web3. So I think that's
it makes sense. I can totally see that. Like on Stargaze, you would have additional sort of API routes that support like specifically NFT collections and high level queries around this, because I don't want to be querying all these wallets and looking at contracts. I just want to understand from this XYZ collection, who are the holders, or when they bought, when they sold, which ones are for sale. So I can sort of understand how that's a level up above the core RPC queries, which just give me the raw on-chain data. That makes sense, and that's also why I understand it. It's in my mind now. It makes sense to have multiple specs, because they could actually be targeting different abstraction levels inside the in the ecosystem, right?
so
This is super interesting.
Exactly as economy works. We creating a modular economy for the blockchain data. So any infra can be supplied and used through Lava. It's if we want to scale the Web3, we need a plug and play solution where RPC is the first step, but then in the future, from subgraph, indexer, oracles, everything. So we build the multi-chain infra into one place. If there is one thing I want you to take from here.
That sounds like a real mission. Well, that's it's a really interesting project. So best of luck going forward. Hope you guys have experienced some strong growth and get those new ecosystems online.
Let's go. I'm inviting everyone listening to the podcast. Join our Twitter. Join the vibrant community. If you are non-tech, even the Lava Foundation will present now a new project, a new points program that called Magma, and that's just a sneaky peek. So stay tuned.
Perfect. Well, it's been fun talking today. I think this is a great place to end the podcast. So thanks very much for coming on, right, Yair? And thumbs crossed.
Thank you for hosting me.